just going to go through my settings of the 5D Mark IV for wedding photography. This is just all my menu settings. I'm doing image quality, I'm just doing a RAW file now. 5D Classic, I was doing a RAW plus a small JPEG or a medium JPEG as a backup, and I was pinging that across to an iPad. But with the Mark IV, just RAW, and I'm sending that straight to the SD and the compact flash card for backup. The SD card is staying, the compact flash stays in the camera and never leaves, and the SD card is the one I take out, and then I can download the images after the wedding. But also what I'm doing with that SD card is I'm taking that with me, so it means my images are in two different places all the time. So let's just go through this. Dual pixel RAW, I'm not getting involved with really. Maybe something to experiment with in the studio, but that's disabled. Image review, I've got 8 seconds. That's long enough for me to take a look at the image and make a judgment on it. So 8 seconds. Beep is always disabled for me because I'm in and out of churches. I'd happily use beep outside, but having to remember to come back in a menu and turn it off, so I don't do that. So disabled all the time. Release shutter without card is off because obviously I don't want to be taking photos with 0 cards in the camera, so that's switched off. Lens aberrations, not important because I'm shooting RAW and I sort that out in Lightroom. So lens aberration is just for JPEGs when you're going to do that in camera. I don't use speed lights at the moment. Well, I do, but I just use a manual flash gun, nothing fancy. I might try out the 430 EX3, I think, on this camera at some point, but that's just not important at the moment. So let's go to the next one. Exposure compensation, I work in manual mode, so exposure compensation is not required. Just doing shutter speed, aperture, ISO, nice and simple. I start off 200, 5.6, so 1/200th. Shutter speed, 200 ISO and 5.6. I pretty much shoot the whole wedding at 5.6. So yeah, exposure compensation is not used. ISO speed settings, you can muck around in here. Just to give you an idea, I'm mainly inside using this at say 6,400, maybe 12,800. 10,000 ISO seems to be the sweet spot maximum for this camera, but as I say, 6,400 ISO is where I'm happy. Auto lighting optimizer is for JPEGs again, so you know I'm working with a RAW file in Lightroom, so I've no need to worry about producing a JPEG with this camera at the moment. Something I might move on to as we go along through the season and experiment with using different settings and trying to produce a good JPEG, but at the moment just sticking with working with the RAW file afterwards. White balance is auto white balance. I don't worry about white balance at all in the camera. Let the camera have a go. To be honest with you, the white balance has been great with this camera anyway, straight out of the camera. So yeah, things are getting better on that front. Custom white balance, never custom white balance anymore. No need to. I use RAW files and auto white balance in the camera. White balance shift again, I've no need to use that. Color space sRGB. Well, I'm producing a RAW file, then I'm outputting as sRGB from Lightroom, so there's no need to worry about the color space in the camera when you're using RAW files. Picture style is neutral. I'll just go in there and give you a look so you've got an idea. It's 022000. I imagine I am going to try and create a JPEG eventually and get a really good one out of this camera, but at the moment I'm just looking for something that's close to what I like on the screen, and you know, neutral's okay, so we're just sticking with that. I always stick with neutral, so we'll carry on with that. Long exposure noise reduction I don't require because I don't do long exposures. That's switched off. High ISO speed noise reduction. This would be helpful if you were producing a JPEG and you can do it straight out the camera. It's defaulted to medium, but as I say, I use the RAW file and use Lightroom. Use noise reduction, sharpening, everything on the back end, so I don't have to worry about it in the camera. Highlight tone priority switched off, but again, that's for the JPEG, not to do with the RAW. Just delete data, don't get involved with that, just clean the sensor, keep one lens on it, and that's the end of that. Multiple exposure disabled. HDR I've been playing with, not getting much luck with it. If anyone's got any comments of how to set HDR up really well, put them in the comments below, but something I'm going to play with through the season. Interval timer I don't use, but you know, it's nice to have it on this camera if you want to do time lapses, but not using it, so it's disabled. Anti-flicker shoot disabled. Live view, I haven't used this much at weddings, but again, you know, let's see how it goes, but I'm keeping it simple. But I'm using it when I'm doing sort of garden stuff and landscape and architecture. So yeah, the live view is really good. Tracking I've used as well, actually. The tracking's really good on the screen. Touch shutter I'll disable because that gets on my nerves, because you touch the screen it goes off, so yeah, turn that off. Grid display off. 3:2 aspect ratio, good old 35mm shape. Try and learn it. If it doesn't quite work out and I'm in Lightroom, I do crop 5:4, I crop square quite often. I think of images in square, and with this 30 megapixel sensor, I have to say the square crop 1:1 is wonderful, and the files you can get out of the camera, and there's enough resolution square, really good. Exposure simulations enabled, just so that you can see on the rear screen. You can work in black and white as well, so you've got your exposure and black and white in the back screen. So in mode 1 for the live view shoot, I found that's the best sound, so it's just a nice little click. Metering timer 8 seconds, don't worry too much about that. Autofocus settings, I'm not going to go into too much here, because to be honest with you, I use center point autofocus, I use one shot, I don't use AI servo. This camera is so fast anyway, with the USM motors in my lens. With brides, grooms, kids, it's, you know, it's fine. So I don't need AI servo, but I'll probably do another video about this if I try it out with some sports or something. One thing I will show you, if I can find it, is this little screen. I do use this with the center autofocus point. So imagine I'm looking at the little square in the middle, and it only shows the little square. I focus, I then wait, because I'm waiting for something to happen in the scene. But at this point, when I focus, I've set it up so the focus point disappears. So I've got a nice clear optical viewfinder, no points over people's eyes here, and you know, I don't really like much of that stuff because you've got too much going on in the viewfinder. I like a nice clear viewfinder. So the focus point disappears, and then I take the photo. And I just repeat that process over and over again at weddings. Focus, recompose, focus point disappears, wait for something to happen, take the photo. That's pretty much my sequence. So I found that as a real benefit. Being able to clear the viewfinder of all the information, all the focus points, is exactly what I'm after. So yeah, I see that as a big improvement over the Classic. Only thing I'm doing really in this play area, I'll just show you, which is another great thing, highlight alert. Highlight alert on the Classic, you had to have the histogram and a small image, one next to the other, and the image ended up being very tiny. But the great thing about the Mark IV is you can have a full-size image, and you can have highlight alert at the same time like the Nikons do. So real bonus, nice big image and highlight alert on. Don't really need to be looking at histograms. As long as I've got a highlight alert and I know exactly where my highlight is, I'm happy. AF point display, just disable. Playback grid. Histogram is brightness with me. If I look at a histogram, the only thing I'm really interested in, to be honest, is brightness. So I've always used that. As I say, highlight alert is more interesting to me. So magnification is 4x. I've found that is the sweet spot for me. So that's when you press play and magnify in. I've set the set button to be my magnify in. So yeah, I hit the set button and 4x in, and that's about the sweet spot for me. Let's carry on. See if we can get to the next one. Here we go. With this one, I'm recording raw file to both cards at the same time, so I've got complete backup. So that's the most important thing for me, backup. File numbering continuous. No real reason for doing that, except for I can keep an eye on how many images this shutter's taken. It started at 200. I bought the software, so I know where I am. Format cards in there, so I keep that tucked away. I don't put that in anywhere else. Quick menu. I don't think I'll put it in the quick menu anyway. Have a look. 1 minute auto power off. The only reason LCD brightness is at 100% on this in manual is because I'm doing this video for you and I don't want it to change. But I would have that in auto normally, so that I would set that to auto and it looks after itself, works fine. Colour tone standard. I've got it on number 2 actually there. Great display on this 5D Mark IV, really impressed with it. Date, time obviously, language, English, viewfinder display, standard. So let's go on to the next one. Battery info is really useful in this camera, I have to say. So I'm doing 2 batteries, it knows the batteries. I'll talk about the batteries another day. I'm using third-party batteries. Have a look in the description actually, because as I am trying some different ones, but I found a really decent battery, 2 batteries in this. So have a look in the description. Sensor cleaning, when you need it, you can go in there. Let's whiz through these. GPS I'm turning off, I believe, I hope so, because it uses the battery. Yeah, GPS disabled, someone told me to do that. Yeah, let's keep going. Don't use C1 to C3 anyway, but you can. I mean, it's something to experiment with. Setting C1 to a certain thing, but I did that at weddings, to be honest with you, a long time ago at the 40D stage. And it just makes it more confusing, so I just stick full manual, keep it simple. Exposure level, I work in thirds because I work with a system of 200, 205.6 and my 200th of a second lands on a third of a stop in the normal system. So I'm in thirds and I think in that way and I'm happy there. Some other stuff in there, but we're not going to talk about today. Live view you can set up, but yeah. I'm not using live view too much at the minute, maybe that's another video. Get in there now, so you can set up your own little my menu in there. I purely put date and time. As I say, I've moved, I did have format card in here, but obviously that could be risky. And I literally leave that in green like that, switch off the menu. And I know it's a black screen now, but bear with me. So when I'm shooting a wedding, it will be black screen because if I put the info back in, now that's using a battery. So I have this set, and I don't even have it on that because that's using more battery. I have it set black, so we're not using any battery when the camera's by my side. And then if I want to know the time, I just hit the menu and it comes straight back out with date, time, zone. So we've got it all there. I found that I used to do that with the 5D Classic. I knew that my menu button got me straight into the time. And you know, obviously there'd be some wedding photographers watching this. You know how much time is our biggest friend and enemy at the same time. So that's a big tip. So you can just get your time straight away, straight into there. And as I say, another big tip with the 5D Mark IV, which, you know, the battery surprised me, to be honest, how quickly it did go. So I've gone for the battery grip and I've gone for 2 cards. Sorry, 2 cards, 2 batteries in the battery grip. So two batteries, 2 cards, no bag at all. It's heaven, honestly. A 24 to 105, 1 lens. So I'm doing 1 lens on a 30 megapixel sensor. It's going really well. I'm really enjoying it. Let's just go over to the quick menu. So these are all the different buttons around the camera you can program. I just have the shutter release, just very straightforward. So it's obviously a shutter release. Half press is autofocus, so I don't use back button focus at all. So that's that first setting, just autofocus. The back button autofocus I don't personally use. Give it a try, see how you get on. something I can't change to. I've done focus, recompose with the shutter release forever, so I don't bother changing that. Sorry if this flashes off very quickly, but Canon have got this set up like that. So here we go. The star button at the back, as I call it, you can have that set to many different things, have that set to off. So I don't have that button on. Too many buttons on this camera in my opinion. I set the depth of field preview to off. Don't use that. Depth of field preview through viewing it through an optical viewfinder might be some help to you, but you're better off with an app and a depth of field chart, to be honest. Here we go. So this is the lens AF. So you can have a button on the some lenses, more expensive ones. I haven't got those, so I don't use that. So that's off. The MFN can be useful for focus point selection. I'm not saying it's not. I do use it for that, but it's generally set off. One I have changed to make this camera really nice to use is to set the set button to magnify the image. So I can instantly hit the set button and I can go straight in on the image. That's worked really well. So let's go down to it again. Apologies for it keep flashing off, but that's the way it is. So the set button is my magnifying glass, go straight in. Standard setup for the main dial at the top is TV, so that's your shutter speed. So I keep it standardized throughout the cameras, 5D classics like that. I don't want to retrain my brain, it's too late in life. So I keep that simple. And the back dial, I have set to ISO, but I'll show you a different method in another video, what I've been doing at weddings. I just want to make sure I like it, to be honest. So I won't tell you that now, but we'll give it a few more weddings, then I'll show you a really good method for using ISO, etc. on this camera. And then we've got the new button there, which is in between here. So we've got the little button there, have that switched off as well. Sorry, that's that one, missed out on that one. That's the joystick. Joystick switched off as well. So the way I use this camera, what a waste of money, spending all this money and not using the buttons. But, you know, I'm buying the cameras for different reasons. And you might find this with a lot of professional photographers. We don't need all of this stuff, too many buttons. We need a really good sensor, nice fast autofocus. But, you know, watch other people, see what they use. But my position on buttons is to switch them all off. Hope that helps. Only a quick video, just in case you're interested in what I do. Thanks a lot. Bye.